We we don't want the polar bears to die.
How is climate change making ice glaciers melt and how is it affecting the environment? The glaciers are melting and they are melting fast. Because of the climate change and global warming, because of the fossil fuels we use, we are increasing the production of CO2 in our atmosphere. This is causing the entire Earth to heat up, which is melting the ice glaciers. This is bad news for the polar bears and for our planet.
10% of the land on Earth is covered with glacial ice. Almost 90% is in Antarctica, while the remaining 10% is in Greenland ice cap. Rapid glacial melting influences ocean currents by melting cold ice into the water. It travels to the warmer ocean waters, then causing currents to slow down. And when the ice melts, sea levels will rapidly increase and flood parts of the Earth. This is because all of the CO2 and emissions we produce since the Industrial Revolution, which are being trapped in the atmosphere, causing a greenhouse effect, which is heating up. Rising sea levels, severe droughts, the melting of polar ice caps, the more frequent and devastating natural disasters all rise demand for humanitarian assistance and relief. By Leon Panetta. I chose this quote because we want the ice glaciers to stop melting, and to stop the ice glaciers from melting, we the humans need to do something. Thank you.
No problem. Hey, Alyssa,
Hey, Matthew.
did you know that global warmings are affecting the glaciers and thus it's affecting the polar bears?
You're joking.
No.
You want to go do some research?
Let's go check it out.
Polar bears are considered as marine mammals because they spend most of their lives on the sea ice. They depend on sea ice for their existence and they are directly impacted by climate change. The summer sea ice has been decreasing in size for decades and melting for longer periods of time. Climate change is not just about carbon dioxide levels and melting polar ice caps. It's about our public health and protecting our Earth for future generations. A quote by Mike Quigley. The reason I chose this quote is because it is showing that climate change is not just going to affect the air or trees or even the melting of ice glaciers, it's going to affect our future population.
The bears must move longer distance to stay with repeatedly receding ice. Climate change is also resulting in more habitat fragmentation. And as Arctic ice melts, polar bears are affected by a rise in opportunities for oil and gas development. There are only fewer than 25,000 polar bears left. My quote is, polar bears did very well in the warmer times. They didn't die out at all. They didn't die out in the last 10,000 years, nor during the previous interglacial, nor the one before that. So they're just used as a delightful heartthrob, to plug your heartstrings because the polar bears might die out. My quote is by Piers Carbine. I chose this quote because it shows because the polar bears lasted throughout decades and decades of different types of weather and complications. Now the technologies are improving, more fuels and oils are being burned and the polar bears are dying because of it. And it shows how big of an impact this has on them.
In this chart, you could see from the year 1979 to the year 2009, the population of ice glaciers have greatly decreased.
How do you guys feel about the polar bears dying?
I feel very sad and bad for the polar bears because they cannot do anything for themselves, but the people can do something to save the polar bears from dying.
I feel very sad because the polar bears are dying and they have to eat their own cubs in order to survive because of how climate change is affecting their eating habits.
They eat their own
So how do we stop the glaciers from melting? How do we stop the polar bears from suffering and soon all the Earth from suffering too? Simply put, we have to stop global warming. But that's a lot harder to do than to say. We all have a part to take. We all have to take action. We can start by throwing away our trash and recycling and not being lazy. We can also use more fuel-efficient sources of energy, which will greatly reduce the amount of CO2 we produce on a daily basis.
A quote by Eliot Spitzer says, "Global warming threatens our health, our economy, our natural resources, and our children's future. It is clear we must act." Through this quote, we can see that we all have a part to do and that we should take action. So let's all do our part, like this.
Humans have made a huge impact on polar bear population. This little guy right here, sure, is dying. I'm just kidding.
Really? Humans have made a huge impact on the polar. The glaciers are melting and they
The Endangered Species Act in May 2008, the survival of
like polar bears and all that stuff. Okay, we'll do this one, Matthew. I don't know anything about polar bears.
I don't know anything about polar bears. I don't know anything about polar bears.